I had a lot of those skills that I needed to be successful in this franchise. Having a sales background, it played really well to my strengths. I knew that I wasn't going back into the 9 to 5 because I was in tech, which is different than corporate. I decided, okay, I'm just going to figure out my next move. But the franchise part was always in the back of my head. I wasn't worried about what's going to happen next. I was more excited about where I was going. I just trust in the process. I'm just going to go forward with it. It was going to be more difficult going forward, and I didn't want the fear of layoffs. And so I think that's what I was motivated by. I was like, well, this is what I have to do, and I have to make it on my own. That's what I did.
Imagine quitting your job with no backup plan when massive layoffs are happening in your industry. Well, that's what our guest today, Tasneem, did. Tasneem is actually a client of ours that we started working with in 2023. And within 90 days, she had bought her franchise and was heading to training to get launched. So in this episode, we unpack why Tasneem decided to take the leap and proactively quit her job without a backup plan, and what franchise she ended up buying and how she was able to get comfortable enough to actually pull the trigger and move forward. We also dive into the uniqueness of her business that she bought. It's something that, she admittedly says never would have imagined that she would have owned this type of business, didn't even realize that they existed, and, what she's doing now as an entrepreneur. Now, if you want to buy a franchise in the next 12 months, you should check out my free franchise masterclass at franchiseempire.com/masterclass. And if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise or resale business, then you can go to franchiseempire.com/ZTPF, and you can schedule a free call, and we're happy to see how we can answer your most pressing questions and point you in the right direction. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Franchise Empire Show, and I have a special guest today, Tasneem. Good to have you here.
Thanks, Tariq. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, super exciting. We've been doing more and more of these, podcast episodes with our clients, it's really fun and exciting, especially just to hear kind of your journey and process. But I'm particularly looking forward to our conversation just because I love all things marketing. I've had to become such a student of it. So I'm excited to kind of dive into it. But just for context, let's start off with just who are you? What do you do? What's your business?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Tasneem Nomanbai, and I'm a digital marketing consultant with WSI. And so what I do is I specialize in helping small to medium-sized businesses generate qualified leads and attract new customers with strategic digital marketing. So, a lot of clients, they come to us because they don't know where to invest their ad dollars. And our goal is to work with them as a trusted advisor to put together a strategic digital plan that will help them yield ROI.
Nice. So when you're saying you guys are for ad dollars, is it purely just online marketing, or do you guys have other services too?
Yeah, it's pretty much online marketing, and what that encompasses is it could be like a digital blueprint. So a full-on strategy if they wanted to go that route. But your traditional online services such as website optimization, because everything starts with a website, and then helping with search engine optimization to rank your website, social media to brand and amplify your marketing, and Google Ads. So some of those are the most common services, but we do a lot of different things. It's more of a comprehensive solution that we put together.
Very, very cool. Yeah, and it's so interesting because most people, did you realize that there was even a franchise in that space?
No. So that was what was really surprising because, Tariq, when I came to you, I was like, oh, I'm just trying to look into franchises. And a lot of ones that came to me were either food and beverage or even service-based, which I hadn't really considered. But when I started working with your team and the franchise brokers, I realized that there is one for digital marketing, and that really caught my attention because of the background in working with clients.
It's so funny because, nowadays, especially, there's not many of our new clients that I ever work with one on one. I mean, maybe through the group calls,
Yeah.
um, or just have the conversation in general before they kind of come on board.
Mhm.
But what's cool is that you and I got to have the initial conversation when you were
Mhm.
like considering us, and obviously I got to learn more about your background and kind of what you were looking for and the different things that were on your mind. And when the team told me the business that you wind up picking, I was like, that's so perfect for her.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was so excited because I was like, oh wow, number one, I didn't even know
Yeah.
that franchise existed. And when they were explaining it to me, I was like, oh, that's like a perfect fit for her. Is that kind of what I mean, it sounds like that's what you felt like as well.
I did. So there were a number of factors, and one was my background. So I come from tech, and I worked in advertising and customer success. So I had a lot of those skills that I needed to be successful in this franchise. As I was talking to the franchisor, and they let me know. And part of the skill set was also like having a sales background, which I did in my past jobs. So I think that those were really key factors, and then not being tied down to brick and mortar. That was really cool to have that flexibility. Uh, and yeah, and just it played really well to my strengths. And I didn't realize that I could have those options. And overall, having a franchisor whose support was there and they had the resources to be successful, I think that was really key.
Yeah. And so with it being like kind of more of an online franchise, essentially, for lack of a better term,
Mhm.
how does it work with, like, do you have a defined territory or geography, or how does that work? Can you work with people like all over?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can work, the territory can be regional, it can be across the US, or it can be international. And so right now, I am open to working with anyone across the US. However, like my focus right now is to build more roots in the community. And so that's really what I want to focus on right now. But yes, I can work with anyone across the US.
Cool. Yeah, it's I love it because I look at your LinkedIn and I see you're always out there networking and doing things and really getting out there. So I can tell that that's something that you've been doing a good job at.
Yeah, no, thank you. I feel like that's something I have to do. And a lot of my clients are business owners on LinkedIn. So that is the medium that I want to use. And a lot of times people are like, I don't know how to use social media. And I think we all know what we're supposed to do, what we don't do it. It's just consistently posting, it's just putting yourself out there, talking about what you know, becoming a thought leader in this space. And the more I do it, the more engagement I get. And so I really, I mean, that is my focus. And I'm learning that it is yielding the results that I want if I am just consistent, just like anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. Just like you said, it's easier said than done.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I kind of get burnt out sometimes with content. We're actually kind of in that phase right now, and we're in a phase of just repurposing a lot of what we've done already,
Mhm.
kind of from different like platforms and or just doing like live content, which is easier.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, just it takes a tremendous amount of work to put out content. But okay, so let's talk about. I'm curious. Let's kind of rewind in your story for a minute,
Mhm.
like because I think I remember from our conversation, you had quit your job, right?
I did. Yeah.
So okay, so walk us through that. Like, what had you even start looking at kind of franchises, business opportunities? Like, what was happening in your world?
Yeah, sure. So this was last year, towards the end of the year, and I was working, and what I was seeing in the industry, in the tech, by the way, my background is in tech, and I'm based out of the Bay Area. And so in Silicon Valley, there were just a lot of layoffs, and it was brutal. And I saw it even earlier in the year. So I saw the writing on the wall. And what And at the job, I was, maybe not fully happy. And so I was rethinking, like, what's my next move? And at that point, I think it's because there were just a couple of things that came as a catalyst for me. I decided, okay, I'm just going to figure out my next move. But the franchise part was always in the back of my head. Like, it wasn't until that there was a couple of things that came together where I'm just like, okay, I just need to decide my next move. I need to take some time off and reevaluate my options, is when I made that quick impulsive decision. And there I was. And so I think the next thing I did was book a call with you. And that's where I was. And I was like, okay, well, I just got to make a move. And as you look back and you reflect on it, a lot of times these are blessings in disguise, because had those things not happened, I wouldn't have made that move and I wouldn't be where I am today. So I decided, like, I just needed to figure out a franchise that I wanted to go with, because it had proven methods to become a business owner where I wasn't fully on my own.
Yeah. And I remember our conversation, again, it's like a little fuzzy because it was a while ago now,
Yeah.
but what I do remember is, like, you were really trying to figure out, like, you really didn't know what you wanted to do. I mean, you were I think you were pretty fresh off of quitting your job, and you were trying to figure out, like, you were like, I have some ideas on businesses I want to start. I'm also looking at franchising. Like, you definitely were in a place where you were just like, I don't really know what's next. I'm kind of exploring. So I don't know. Can you take me back to, like, where, like, what was going on in your mind at that point? Because there's a lot of fear and uncertainty and just kind of confusion that comes from, like, being in that space.
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the time, I wasn't worried about what's going to happen next. I was more excited about where I was going.
Mm,
And I took that because I think that fear really holds us back, and we're all sometimes risk averse, but I'm the opposite. I was just like, all right, that's it. I just trust in the process. I'm just going to go forward with it. But I don't think that's most people. And
mm.
for me, once I make a decision, I move forward with it and I execute on it. And so where I was like, well, I'm going to decide one way or another where to go. I think what I knew was that I wasn't going back into the corporate world, the 9 to 5, because I saw that it was really difficult for people. And actually, let me take that back. I knew that I wasn't going back into the 9 to 5 because I was in tech, which is different than corporate. I knew that I left corporate a long time ago, but with tech, I love that space, but I knew that it was going to be more difficult going forward. And I didn't want the fear of layoffs to be looming over me at any
Yeah.
point. And so I think that's what I was motivated by. I was like, well, this is what I have to do, and I have to make it on my own. And that's what I did.
Yeah. What else were you considering at that time outside of, like, franchising?
Nothing else, actually. I just needed to, because to start a business, I couldn't do it on my own. I think that's really scary. I just don't have that background. And so I decided, okay, well, franchise is the way I want to go. And I knew that I've looked into it passively, but then I was very active when it came to you. I was like, I knew I have to make the move. And I think I did it really fast. Like, after I spoke to you, it was just within a month. I think I was like on board.
Hey, so I recently put together a list of 5 low-cost franchises that make $1 million or more. If you want to see that list, then click the link below in the description or go to franchiseempire.com/low cost. Let's get back to the episode. Oh, really interesting. I'd have to look at the data.
Yeah.
We track all that stuff. So was it that quick that you had signed your agreement?
Yeah, it was probably within 1 to 2 months, only because I knew which one I wanted, and I just had to progress further in those talks because there was just due diligence. There's a lot of different steps.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we spoke, you and I in the beginning, did you have, like, hesitancies or fears or concerns, or you were pretty much just like, no, yeah, let's rock and roll. Like, everyone's a little bit different. So
Yeah, I'm an anomaly, so I didn't have that, but I know that is the norm, and it's It's very normal to have those fears when making such a big life decision. But I just knew like what I didn't want to do. So that's how I moved forward.
Yeah, cool. And so what was the process like? Okay, so when you started working with the team and they presented different options to you, what other things did they present outside of WSI?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So I don't think any food and beverage, which is like very good. I'm very thankful. Not for me, but I would say a lot of service-based businesses too, because I have a background in real estate, and I thought anything that could complement me, right? They went through what my strengths were, what my preferences were, and ultimately, I just thought, because I really liked what I did. I liked my job. It wasn't that I didn't like it. And so I knew that if I could get something similar, but just on my own terms and being my own boss, I thought that was a huge win. And so I decided to go with WSI. But I think, for example, there were just a lot of, like home services, flooring, installation, and gosh, I can't remember, but any of those home-based services.
Yeah. And so for some people, it's really interesting to kind of hear their decision-making process. Like some people like go far down the process with like three different franchises, and then it's hard to make a decision. They're like, I like a bunch of them. Sometimes people are just like, they lock in on one right away and they're like, nope, this is the only one that I want to talk to. What was your experience, and did you know like how soon after did you realize that like, hey, I think this is like the business that I want to go with?
Just within a couple weeks. I think I talked to maybe one other. I talked to one other franchise, but I knew that because there was nothing similar to what WSI had from the other franchises. So I just knew that this was unique and this was a good fit for me. And I liked everything about it over time when I had more meetings. And so I knew that that was where I was going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting because again, I didn't know that existed
Hmm.
either. So cool. And how do you think what was where did you get the most value out of the program?
I think from just the advice of the brokers, just walking me through that process. And I made that decision so quickly with who to go with that I didn't have the opportunity to fully utilize all of the videos and the platforms. Because I know you walk through that process. Again, I'm atypical. And so I found that valuable. And then just the group, right? And the calls that you have with the group and the community so that we can always bounce questions off of each other and learn from each other.
Yeah. Yeah, the group calls are a lot of fun. So who do you work with now in the space that you're in? Like what sort of clients are you working with, and what are the challenges that they're coming to you with, or like most concerned about when you guys start working together?
Yeah. So, the industries that we work with span a lot of different industries. So I specifically focus on small to medium sized businesses. Our The clients are in industries such as like healthcare or legal, nonprofit. And so it just runs the gamut. But I would say, I think common across all of them is, hey, I am trying to attract more customers. I'm trying to grow my business, but either they haven't done marketing before, or they have done it and they've been burned, or it hasn't been effective. They've lost money. I feel like that's a very common theme across all of my clients, but also just a misunderstanding of how digital advertising works and how to think of it as an investment rather than an expense.
Yeah, very interesting. So what are the type of solutions that you offer, and that you wind up like working with them on? Because for a lot of people, the term like digital advertising like can mean so many different things.
Yeah. So there, there are a lot of different services that we offer. There are common ones, but everything starts from your website. And we always like to start with that and audit that and optimize it, because I think people don't realize that your website should be optimized for conversions, meaning that people should take action when they visit your website. Either they know exactly what to do, either they book a meeting with you or call you or download something, any way to engage your audience, because that's a potential customer. And from that, we want, once you have a website, well, how do people find out about you and learn about you? So that's search engine optimization to help you rank higher in searches, SEO, social media to amplify your brand and build your online presence, Google Ads to generate qualified leads. Uh, and a lot of different things like email marketing. It just depends on your industry and your brand. I think that, and that's really where we come in. I would say where we differ is we're more strategic. We're a strategic partner. So a lot of clients, they do come and say, hey, I just need Instagram. Like, well, wait, what's your goal? What are you trying to achieve? um, that, based on your industry and based on your competitors, like that's not where you should be investing your ad dollars. And so I think there are a lot of things that we have to educate our customers on to eventually choose the right strategy that will help them meet their goals, bring in revenue. Because as small businesses, I mean, you just don't have money to throw around or waste.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, budgets can be tight. So interesting. So how does that work? So like you're coming into that space as a franchisee.
Mm-hmm.
Are you the one that's actually doing all of the technical work, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Where I come in is more strategy and consulting. So, as a digital marketing consultant, I am the front lines in communication with a client and setting the right expectations, helping to manage the account overall. But I have a production team, and the production team, there's in house, we have a huge supplier network of vetted suppliers. So, I work with a lot of different and like folks to help bring the performance of the campaign and to deliver on those results.
That's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, very,
Yes.
very interesting. What's been the most exciting part so far in the journey, or like what you feel like the area that you've like learned the most about and kind of experienced the most amount of like transformation since becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I would say, I was always really good at working with clients. Um, I think where I'm learning the most is about being an entrepreneur, building my brand, building my business, because that's all new to me. And it's really just about building relationships in the community. When you're 9 to 5, you think about seeing things from a different lens, and then when you're a business owner in the community, um, then you have a different perspective on things. And my goal is to learn more about the businesses, learn about the challenges of small business owners, and really invest myself in the community and join different organizations, meeting people. And I find that really fun too and rewarding, because that's just not where I was involved in before.
Yeah. Yeah, very, I know, very interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of like, especially in the area that you're in, like a lot of just networking and getting to know people. That's actually the stuff that I hate, believe it or not. Uh,
That's so funny. I think it's daunting at first, right? Because you're just like, oh, networking, and you don't know. Sometimes people don't know how to do it. But all I do is I just try to meet people and expand. And it's honestly an opportunity to meet other business owners and peers that could be advocates. And so I try, like every time I meet somebody, I try to add them to my network. I try to follow up with an email. And now we have something ongoing. We meet up if we're local. And so it's pretty cool, but you have to really know how to execute on it. And you have to be genuine about it, right? So I'm passionate about this, but at the same time, also like passionate about helping businesses and supporting one another. And I know that it's a long term strategy to invest in others and yourself. And I think that you just have to go in with the right mindset.
yeah, it's a good point. I'm naturally, people don't believe me when I say it, but I'm naturally more introverted.
I don't believe it.
And so, it just in general, when it has to come to, yeah, just like meeting people in person and having to speak to them, like yeah.
But you know what? I would argue that you do it through different means. Maybe you're not doing it one on one at a conference, you're doing it on camera, which I think a lot of people find that daunting. So
It
I
is.
would say you're doing it at scale, right? You're reaching a mass audience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because for years I had always wanted to be a speaker, and I did a little bit for Tony Robbins, but it's like that's essentially what I'm doing now. I'm just doing it through a digital world,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty interesting. But
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, what do you find that most of your clients like? What are they really struggling with, or what are the mistakes that they are making? And I guess I'll frame that question with what I see is that most business owners, they don't know. They avoid their marketing stuff. They don't know how it works. It's kind of all overwhelming and confusing to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they just kind of like neglect it or sweep it under the rug, or just like, oh, I have someone who does that, and they don't even know how it works, which typically leads to pretty pretty poor results overall. So like what are you seeing in your conversations?
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like there are different categories. So I would say that that would be the first category where there are business owners who don't have any kind of marketing budget, right? It's word of mouth and referrals, which has helped them maintain and uh, build their business to where they are. But, I think the conversation has to be like, oh, what's your growth plan? And where do you want to go and how do you want to scale? Do you have a strategy to help you get there? And that's when these conversations come into play. And a lot of times when they're new to marketing, yes, exactly what you said. They don't understand how it works. They don't know where to invest their ad dollars. Maybe a lot of people are just coming with tactics like, oh, IG, I want to go viral, and don't know what that means or how difficult that is. And then they're looking for instant gratification, right? Just I want to do 1 month of advertising and I want to see X number of results. And I think like that's not how it works. We need to like break down those um, biases about advertising or stereotypes, and we need to start fresh. And it's part of it is like an education process on like, hey, let's reevaluate what you want to do and what you want to achieve, and think of your marketing as a long-term investment to help you grow your business, because that's what's going to take you from A to B.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's something that I had to learn a lot about because marketing was never like my natural inclination. And you and I were just talking before we hit record about how I had invested a pretty good amount of money into hiring like an SEO agency to start building out different articles and stuff, knowing that it's going to be a longer term thing. And we just had someone who became a client where that's how she found us. She found
Yeah.
us from typing something into Google, searching, and an article came up, and which is pretty mind-boggling and really exciting overall. Um, but yeah, I think there's a ton of entrepreneurs that they just don't even think about that stuff because you're so focused on next month. I gotta bring in clients right away, or we're always looking for kind of that short-term fix. But it
Yeah.
actually really hurts you in the long term.
Right, right. And that's where, a strategy needs to come in. And I think what you mentioned is really powerful because part of what we offer is like content marketing strategy. And what that entails is just putting content online to enhance your brand and digital presence, but also position you as a thought leader in the space so people can find you like you found your client. Those tend to be higher quality prospects that really turn into clients. And that content could be in the form of newsletters, webinars, YouTube videos, ebooks. So anything that provides value for the end user and demonstrates like what you can help achieve for them as a partner.
Hey, so if you want to learn the right way to own a money-making franchise without putting your family at risk financially, then check out our free masterclass at franchiseempire.com/masterclass. Let's get back to the episode. Yeah, interesting. So are you guys are providing like just the strategic component, or are you guys actually like executing on like doing the copywriting and actually like outsourcing the creation of the content as well?
Yeah, yeah. So it depends on what the creation is. Like, for example, a lot of times we don't do standalone services, right? They're embedded in certain things. So, for example, if you were to do SEO, part of SEO is content strategy. Like, for example, a number of set blogs that you will have, because SEO, when Google is looking to rank you on the internet, they're looking for the value that you're providing the end user when they're searching a keyword or a key term. And if your articles are popping up, that's part of the SEO strategy. So yes, we would help with things like blogs. And I would say, not necessarily like, what's it called? Not necessarily videos, but newsletters or email marketing campaigns. That's part of content marketing strategy. So that's where we come in. We can help partner with you.
Got it. And so, and I may have missed it. So you guys are actually like creating the content too?
Yes. Creating content.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know, but it's really important. And I'm so glad you brought that up because that's definitely a strategy.
Yeah, content creation takes so much time. It's funny because we've had people ask like, well, actually, I'm a huge believer in
Mhm.
like your business and what it is that you do because there's a concept. I've been reading these books by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. They have a series of these books, and one is called Who, Not How,
Mhm.
and the whole concept of it is that most business owners and entrepreneurs, these books are specifically for entrepreneurs, they're always asking, like, they're thinking, all right, how do I do this in my business? I want to grow my marketing. I want to figure out this challenge in my business. How do I do it? And then they spend all of this time trying to figure out the how. And the whole concept is that in order to create the most amount of success and the highest amount of leverage, the question is, who do you need, not how do you do it? Because
Mhm.
the best entrepreneurs that are the most successful, they don't figure out all the hows themselves. They find other people, they find who already know how, and then they hire them. And so, I think some people, especially if they're, just starting a business or earlier on or whatever, we get caught up in that mindset and then think that hows or whos, I'm sorry, have to be like full-time employees.
Mhm.
Whereas
Mhm.
they don't. They can be an agency, a contractor. Like what would you classify yourself as?
Yeah, so we are a digital marketing agency. So that's right.
Agency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you don't have to try to figure it all out by yourself. And the beauty in hiring an agency or whatever it is that they have the expertise.
Mhm. I know. I know, and I think that's a great point, right? Time is your most valuable commodity. Like, how much time are you spending in creating something? Like, let's say it would take you 10 hours a month, and that's thousands of dollars, which you could have paid to an agency, which would do it 10 times better. So you're going to spend all that time and money and your resource, and you're still not going to be as good as the expert. So I think that is just the mindset shift, right?
Yeah. There's another book. Have you ever heard of Dan Martell?
No.
So he wrote a book called Buy Back Your Time.
Oh, yeah, I have heard of that book, though.
Yeah, I think I might have shared it in the Facebook group or in one of the calls or something like
Yes,
that.
that's what I'm like, that sounds so familiar. Okay.
Yeah. I know, I'm such a nerd. I'm like, read all these business books and I'm dropping our Facebook group. I'm like, you guys should read this.
No, that's great because I think we do that in our groups too. And I'm just been consuming more content because it's really professional development is really important.
Yeah, it's super key. So Dan Martell has this concept, buy back your time, which is, basically to hire out the things that you're not good at or you don't want to do.
Mhm.
And so, like a lot of entrepreneurs will just, it's funny, I connected with a couple of franchisees over this last week, and just like some of the things that they're spending time on in their business, like I don't have any time. And it's like, well, why don't you hire someone to do that? Why don't you hire someone to do that? And so in that book, he's all about what you do is you calculate based on like what it is that you're producing in your earnings or your business or whatever it is, you calculate what your hourly rate is, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so I think the methodology is you take whatever you're like paying yourself and or all the profit that the business generates. So as an example, if someone's making $100,000 a year and then you divide that by, I think it's 2,000. Yep.
Mhm.
So because that's basically 52 weeks times somewhere around 40
Mhm.
hours, it's somewhere around that. So that's $50 an hour, right? Is
Mhm.
what that person's rate would be. And so the whole concept of the book is basically divide that by 4, and anything that's 12.50 an hour or below, you must outsource that and
Yeah.
get rid of those tasks. Um, and so it's just interesting because I just see it all the time. Entrepreneurs focusing on things that um, like they could go out there and produce so much more results by, let's say, if they had someone like
Mm.
I mean, we have people that write our content. We have a whole team that does all sorts of things. And I think a lot of people just think, "Oh my goodness, how does Tariq put?" Because we've had people ask, like, "How do you put out all that content and how do you do all that stuff?" Like, uh, I don't write any of my social media posts. Um, we have multiple video editors on our team, all those different things, and I sense that and I'm sure you see it all the time. There's all these entrepreneurs out there that are just they're sacrificing their growth because they're either trying to do things in their business that they shouldn't be doing, or they're just neglecting it completely, like marketing, because they don't know how to do it.
Yeah. And that's such a good point. I maybe I read it by Dan Martell, but I know that was another um I had read that somewhere else where it's just you take your hourly rate and you figure out like, okay, how much is this costing you? And I think one other point that I want to make is a lot of times a challenge that I see with clients or prospects is like they come and they say, hey, I've done this in the past and it hasn't worked. And they're also price sensitive. So then they choose a partner based off of that price. And then, the old adage that's like you get what you pay for. And that's really true in digital marketing too. It's like, I think you want to choose a partner that's the best fit, not necessarily price, because then at the end of the day, you're going to see like, oh, well, you haven't ranked number one on Google because, that person did not deliver on the promises that they made and price was a factor. And so I think that's something to consider as well.
100%. So what would like kind of in closing, like what message do you want to share to like business owners that are out there right now, like trying to grow their business, or like what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say for business owners, it's really important to invest in your online presence. And, if you don't have a website, make sure to have a website. But if you do, look for ways to optimize what you're currently doing and build your brand and use different strategies because you're going to be at a point where you need to grow and you need to invest. And that's the best time to do it because having that digital footprint will help you initially get the clients that you want and market yourself as an authority in your industry. So I think it's really important to start considering that because the fact is that your competitors are already a way ahead of you, and so you're already behind, and then you'll be catching up and investing twice as more to do that.
That's a really good point. Your competitors are already doing it and ahead of you, and that was one of the things that that I had saw with us with content marketing specific to like SEO and like blogs and articles is I'm like, although we're good with video, there's all these other websites that would be considered competitors, and they're just like, they're popping up first, 3, 4, 5 on Google. And I'm like, oh wow, like this is costing us. So I think that's a really good point and way to make it.
Yeah, no, glad that resonates with you as a business owner as well. But that's definitely something I want people to be mindful of. And the goal is to help everyone succeed. And so we just want to think of it as a long-term strategy for winning.
Winning, #winning. Remember when that was a
thing? Yeah.
Cool. So for anyone who wants to like reach out to you and have a conversation, maybe they have a business, like what's the how do they do that? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. I can provide a link to my website, and on the website, there's a way to book a free complimentary consultation with me. I'm happy to just chat and see if marketing or online marketing is a good fit. It's typically a discovery call where we understand your challenges, your goals, and see what budget you have in mind and work from there. And
cool. Awesome. Well, we'll send me that link, and then we'll make sure to put it in like the description and everything too. And I'll mention it in the intro. But thanks so much for coming on. I enjoyed our chat and our conversation, and I'm really excited to see how things, continue to develop for you. I know you're still in the first year and the early stages of the business, but yeah, I'm excited to see how things, just continue to evolve.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for that. So thanks again, Tariq, for your support and the community. I think that's really helpful in helping me get where I am, and I'm just looking to give back more and see where it goes. But I'm excited for what's to come. Hopefully we'll have another chat and I'll be farther along.
I'm sure you will. All right.
All right. Thanks, Tariq.
Hey, before we go, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. And the biggest thank you that you could ever give me is to share this episode with someone who you think will benefit. That means that we can share this message with more people and hopefully positively inspire them like we have you. So thank you. And until next time, go build your empire.